To pick up where we left off, it's more now speaking to the point of the invitation. There is a process which Guru Nanak referred to, which is simply listening.
Oh, okay.
By listening, all sins, sorrows, and suffering are erased. So the thing to be aware of is that sins is a Farsi word. It's an archery term, and it doesn't mean what we've come to think of it as. In archery, sin is just to aim at something and then miss the mark. It's not to do what you're attempting to do.
Okay.
In a way, that's thinking, well, you are a limitless being, an eternal, limitless, all-pervasive, omnipresent, omnipotent, and omnipowerful being, guiding oneself through the pinhole, vortex of limited experience. Because what is the one thing that you could not do if you are completely unlimited? To experience yourself through limitation. To experience yourself if you're everywhere and all-knowing, all-powerful at once, how could you know yourself from an experience of yourself? So to expand, as the universe seems to be ever expanding, the consciousness that is knowing itself is ever expanding. This means it's seeking to have greater, deeper knowledge of itself. It's pushing its boundaries, ever expanding into the emptiness to bring in more realization of itself. This story is expressed in the Greek mythology that Zeus, the father of the gods, meets Métis, the ancient, previous goddess of wisdom. This comes from the gods that existed before the Olympians, the Titans. And excuse my kind of vernacular phrasing, but he looks at Métis and he's awestruck by, he's captivated and inspired at the same moment. He thinks she's beyond comprehension, unbelievably beautiful. I must have her. Why haven't I had her before? Why isn't everybody seeking to have her? And in that moment, he springs, pounces upon her, and he's in the creative act. And just as he arrives, he remembers, oh my God, the prophecy, anyone who mates with Métis their offspring will overthrow the father. And in that moment, he thinks, what can I do? And being a god and father of the gods, he opens his mouth so wide that he completely consumes her. He takes her inside himself to hold back what he's trying to avoid, his overthrow. But the problem is she's already pregnant. And she gives birth to their daughter inside of him.
Wow.
And she does that so that their daughter, Athena, is born fully grown and fully armored from his forehead. She pops out where it's through his brow point. And she, as I said, she's fully grown, fully armored. And this is a metaphor. In fact, all Greek mythology is a metaphor, really largely to do with the chakra system. They remembered their ancient science in a way that could only be understood through vast periods of time by someone who, or some group of people who had enough knowledge to reinterpret what the mythology meant. And in that, it's similar to the story of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. That the garden is order, represents order. It represents what is known, just as Zeus represents what is known. Outside the garden wall is the jungle, is chaos, is the unknown. What Métis represents in this allegory is the mysterious, the unknown. And when the known reaches out beyond the city walls, beyond the order, it's going out into chaos. And chaos is not necessarily chaos. That the Garden of Eden exists inside what is known. It's order amongst the chaos, but it's a garden. It's not surrounded by emptiness, it's surrounded by jungle. It's surrounded by an order that seems like chaos to man, to humans. But there is an order that is much, much older than human order. The jungle doesn't fall to pieces. The jungle works very well for itself. And the animals and the plants and the minerals within that jungle function as one. There's a circle of life, as they say in The Lion. There's a circle of life that works. It works as one. From the human perspective, with the tendency to anthropomorphize everything, we relate to the prey that's being hunted, except when we're hungry, and then we relate to the predator that's hungry. Plant has a healing property that relates to some ill. And every ill has a healing plant that relates to it. when we understand standing next to a tree, touching a tree, we are embedding ourselves in this field of healing. A tree is constantly, all plants are constantly emitting sterilizing particles that are geared towards killing the predatorial or uh, destructive particles that are in the atmosphere, things that would tend to attack the plant and kill it, or things that would tend to be parasitic and live off of it. But usually that parasitic relationship is not positive for the plant and eventually causes the plant injury and it dies. So these are plant infestations, different kinds of infections. When we stand near a plant, when we hug a tree, when we touch a tree, we're stimulating parts of our body to begin to recognize and bring in these airborne particles that the tree is emitting because they sterilize our atmosphere. That feeling when you walk through the woods and you stop for a moment and stand by a tree, maybe leaning against it, putting your hand against it, holding on to a branch. There's this impulse to just stop and breathe deeply. Ah, nature, it's so wonderful. That is not just a human appreciation of being in nature. It's us, the body, naturally returning to our pre human or pre potential human mode of being. We naturally know, the body knows to breathe deep and take advantage of what the trees are doing for themselves. We're bringing in effectively sterilization of the air to prevent the parasites, to prevent the pathogens that are existing, airborne pathogens that are existing everywhere that otherwise would cause us harm. So, this quality of listening is not just the listening we think of as listening with the ears. Listening is a 365-degree activity. It's not limited to direction the way the eyes are. And there's a quality of listening as in being in the moment, being aware now. We're not just stepping into the present momentumary current. When the human steps into the present moment as we think of it, the human being is really remembering presence, pure presence. The Egyptians used to call the process of awakening coming forth by day. The Egyptian Book of the Dead was never called the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead similarly was not called the Tibetan Book of the Dead. What the Tibetans called their book was the book of living and dying, meaning the book of living coming into individuated presence, and evil, the spelling of live backwards, going back out of the experience of individuated existence. We've come to think of that as evil because we want to preserve our individuated experience as long as possible because that's what we've come to have. We've moved from the limitless to the limited, from the unlocalized consciousness to the localized awareness. And eventually we shift back. But as that's the purpose of human existence, we want to prolong that experience as long as possible while it's still enjoyable and profitable. We've come to gain from the experience of ourselves, the limitless, through the lens of the limited, to have an experience, to see ourselves the way we come in from outside and we look in a mirror and we see the image, the projected image of ourself. It's a limited experience because the greatest experience of ourselves in our true nature is to experience the boundless, the limitless. This is why we love to go to the seaside, to the shore, and stare out into the sea where the sky meets the sea. That is the closest thing we can experience to a mirror of our true self. The true self is that razor edge between the sky and the sea that we call the horizon. The soul, or if we're looking at a landscape, a desert or a vast plain, the soul is the limited experience on one side of that razor sharp line we call the horizon, and the other is the boundless or more boundless experience of the spirit that exists in the sky. When we turn our eyes upward from the horizon, our view expands from that razor sharp line, expands out to limitless blue. This is why we tend to think of the masculine, the spirit, Guru Devji, as blue. This is why we associate the color blue with the masculine, blue for boys. And then when we look down from that horizon line towards our feet, we become more and more and more limited. The view doesn't expand, it contracts. It races up to our feet as we're bending our head downward, looking towards the land that we're standing on, until we arrive at just staring at our feet in that small piece of earth, or if we're in a boat, that small bit of the sea that we're existing in. And we can think of that as turning outward and turning inward. But to make the complete turn inward, we have to literally go inside. And the thing is, the soul is in the blood. The individuating soul exists within the blood. And it's blood that's taking in limited experience of life. So that's oxygenated blood. When the body breathes in air, oxygen mixes with the blood cells and becomes a rich red color. But as the blood is going back out from the body, when it's depleted of oxygen and filled with carbon dioxide, the blood is blue in color. So in the arteries, it's red. In the veins, it's blue. And that blue blood returns from the heart to the lungs, where the carbon dioxide is exchanged for more oxygen, and the blood becomes red again. So this freedom that we experience as a spirit is blue, limitless, but no longer experiencing life, what we call life. This masculine desire in our experience of duality is a desire for freedom, freedom from the body, hence the blue color. And the human experience in the body bride is the oxygenated blood. The oxygen coming from outside into the body is investing itself into a limited experience of a body bride, harnessed and held within a blood cell. Hence the red color. Pink is for girls. We've lost the memory of what these ancient practices meant. And all the old, what we called wives' tales, have huge, important knowledge within them. They're called wives' tales because wive rhymes with wise. The ancient knowledge that needed to be preserved, held, and handed on has always happened through the line of the grandmothers. The feminine experience is one of connection. We're still in a limited experience of the body, but the woman has in her the potential to extend life, to pass genetic information, which allows us to improve our experience of the world. When I speak of all these things, it's to understand that it wasn't important for this information to be dissected, analyzed, and quote unquote understood, to be stood under. That the feminine has the quality of just gather and hold the information. Why? So that information will be available and retrievable 10,000 years from when that information was encoded, or 10 million years. In the human experience, there is knowledge in the subconscious that has preserved existence in these bodily forms since the last great fall, the last apocalypse. And we're beginning to wake up and remember that information to meet the coming storm. We're back in the story of Zeus meeting the unknown, which seems to be chaos from our perspective. We're back in the story of the Garden of Eden, where we're cast out from the garden of control of what's understood. The primal order. Alignment with the primal order, letting go of the synthetic order that we've manufactured that served us, but now has become the human order that we've created is now working against, not modifying in a positive way, in an enhancing way, which it originally meant to, but it's now modifying and destroying, working against, fighting with the order of all life. This is the nature of heart year, the year of listening. But it doesn't mean just listening with your ears. It means listening with your body, letting your body return to the remembrance of where it came from, where it evolved from. It evolved to live in perfect harmony with the surrounding environment. We breathe in oxygen, we give off carbon dioxide. Plants breathe in carbon dioxide and give off oxygen, sterilizing anti-pathogens. Hug them occasionally, work with them, work with the plants in our hands when we pick fruits or pick herbs. Sterilizing qualities. And then we benefit from that. When we eat a fruit, a plant, a tree, actually, we can measure that the tree becomes happy, literally gives the same frequency vibrations that humans have when we sit by an apple tree and chew the apple and appreciate it. This tastes good. Or pick a grape from the vine. This tastes good. The plant is happy because we're serving it. What happens when we eat an apple? We walk away and we, excuse my language, but we're serving it when we shit. We've expanded that plant's field of experience. We've taken that plant seed that we've eaten to another location. And when we drop that and the feces with it, we give that plant the nutriments and the moisture that it needs to grow. We've basically already prepared the earth. That's all is reconstituted or recycled earth that's mixed with moisture and all the things that we have given off that no longer are useful to us, but they're useful to the plant seed. So we want to go back to a state of listening to our bodies, listening gut, which will tell us what we need to know. Not it doesn't work in belief. It works in knowledge. And then listening to the mind, because the mind is also connected to a field. We call that the 0 point field. There is a higher dimensional geometry that unfolds from a point. A point is non-dimensional, but from a point extends another point, and through those 2 points runs a line. That's the first dimension, a line, and we experience that as a timeline. We experience our existence as a timeline running between 2 points. We could call that a line segment. Our whole life is a segment of intention. It's a line that goes from an unknown beginning to an unknown end, virtually infinite. And we exist between 2 points on that line, our birth and our death. We are the third point that seems to be moving along that timeline. So there are 3 points. Those 3 points, although on a line, actually, as a human being, form a triangle, like a wave lifting out of the sea. The sea doesn't stop being the sea because a wave lifts to a point, a crest, and then crashes. It lifts to a peak and then falls back into what becomes a trough, and then lifts to a peak and falls back into a trough. This human experience of above the medium line, below the medium line, above the medium line, below the medium line, crest and crash, crest and crash, crest and crash. This is the nature of human experience. To come into limited experience, to go back into limitless experience, which we perceive as nothing because it's beyond our comprehension. It's outside the 2 points that we consider the veils, what Nanak spoke of as the veil. We're simply moving from inside the veil to outside the veil. And the veil is triangular or circular because it's the horizon line that we can't see beyond. The spherical shape of the universe is the spherical shape of a drop of water. Nature, if anything, it is economical, if nothing else. And a sphere is the most economical, energetic, and space economy shape. It only has one side. Everything in the universe is about the meeting of spheres. We're in a sphere of consciousness, a limited sphere of consciousness, attempting to remember the infinity that's within us. We're just a drop in the ocean, but there is an ocean within every drop, if we're to quote Rumi. Heart Year is about listening with the mind, using the mind, but in a productive way to support the presence, not fight with it. So if we quickly look before closing, we've got 13 minutes left. If we look, this 1 and 3, 13 and 31, are particularly powerful numbers. 1 is all existence. 0 is non-existence. It's not that there's nothing there, there's no thing there. And everything is not all that there is, it's everything. Everything is filled with things. Nothing has no thing in it. These are two states of consciousness that human beings experience. The no thingness of pure presence is who we truly are. This is the true self, no thingness. We just experience the way the rest of the universe experience itself as an undivided part of the whole. Everything is a human conception. We cannot conceive of the whole because we've stopped experiencing ourself as the whole. We've come to experience limitation, which is thingness. This is both the beauty, the gift, and the evil curse of language. Language is a parasite that lives off the experience of presence. Human beings developed language, our limited language, to describe our experience. But we're born with the potential of all the phonemes, every phoneme, every particle of speech, the way the Scots say their R's, the way the Taoists say Tao instead of Tao. We have this in Gurbani as well, this idea of a soft D, a soft T and a hard D. A soft T is not a D. There's a nuance between T and D. And there's even two Ds. It's the tongue moving along the soft palate at the roof of the mouth to where the hard palate is, and also moving to the teeth. So using the teeth, the dental, like we use the verge between the hard and soft palate. Language limits itself to what each group has used a particular set of phonemes. A baby is born with the ability to use all of them, but we then forget the ones we don't use. That's why we speak with an accent when we speak a different language, because we've forgotten how to make that sound in our mouth. And we can only remember an approximation of it. I use this example because this is the nature of human existence, human experience. We're moving from higher dimensional, abstract, archetypal understandings, labelings, using language to descend through that higher vibration, higher dimensional experience into more concrete, limited approximations. And so language approximates a sound from another language. The mind approximates experience from its limited cultural experience, its cultural perspective, which then becomes more limited in a tribal or nation state, then tribal, then family, then individual experience. It's going from more and more abstract into more and more concrete, more and more archetypal, which includes everything, to more and more approximate. The way we have the word chair, but you can have dining chairs, office chairs, barber's chairs, dentist chairs, right? It's moving from archetypal abstract to approximation. We all used to speak the language of mathematics, the language of God. Every creation myth across the planet is a description of this process, not how the world was created, but how we human beings are creating the world in this very moment. But when these myths began, human beings understood that we don't remember things unless they have a high emotional value. This high emotional value means we remember things that are dangerous in the subconscious mind. When there's a high emotional value, we take that memory that's happening when we're experiencing something negative.
Uh-oh. He got cut off. He'll come back. Sue, are you there? He got disconnected. Is he coming back? He's got only about 4 minutes left. Let me try to call him. And so I think he got disconnected. I wonder if he's coming back or not. He's only got about 4 minutes left. Mm-hmm. Yeah, your connection is bad. I mean, we'll wait for another about 5 minutes or so. Otherwise, we'll just go off. Okay. Well, dear Satsangaji, we wait and see if he'll be back. Mhm. I don't know. We just give him another few minutes, otherwise, we'll just go off. I think he's always outside connection.